All right, continuing on. Must have, it's a quorum, which they call a simple majority. That's 7 of the 12. Of the members present, they need a majority to bind the commission to a decision. What's the majority of 7? 4. So think about this. The entire state theoretically can make a decision based on 4 people's input. If 7 show up for the meeting, and of those 7, 4 decide to do something, they can bind the commission to that. All right? The commission can take any action without a meeting if there has been prior written consent or all members orally consent to the vote. Okay? So what that's saying is because they only meet once a month doesn't mean that you will have to wait for the next meeting for your license to get approved. Okay? Because here's the way this really works. When you go finish the class, you will go take the state exam. When you pass the state exam, you will be given the form to make application to the state. Just because you pass the state exam doesn't mean you'll get a license. You have to make an application. On that application, it's going to ask you 5 or 6 different questions. You ever been arrested for a felony? Did you go to school? How many hours did you take? Were you solicited for work during the school? The answer to that is no, by the way. I have not asked any of you to come work for the moduling group. I cannot do that. I can't allow brokers in here to come talk about. I can't allow you guys to wear shirts that say, hey, I'm going to Century 21. I got one of their. Can't do that. This is a recruitment-free zone. If you put yes, they're going to call you down to the commission and me, and I will win that, by the way, because I've got audio recordings they can listen to, where I never ask that. All right? And it doesn't preclude you from asking questions. I just can't solicit you guys to come to a brokerage I own, nor anybody else. Okay? So once you make that application, Deanna Alexander will present that to the commission, and the commission is going to say, does Tiffany Richards have a clean application? And you answered the questions all correctly, finger quotes. She'll say, yeah, okay, give her a license. So what she'll do is, we've got 50 applications. Are they all clean? Yeah. All in favor? Aye. Rubber stamp, everybody gets their license. All right? I'm dealing with a client right now, or not a client, a former student, that didn't answer the questions the way they wanted to see the answers. So she had to submit a bunch of paperwork from the court system. So when they went to license, obviously Deanna's like, we got one issue here we need to talk about. Okay, let's talk about it. Well, this young lady, so-and-so, had this arrest or that arrest and whatever, and they said, okay, we want to talk to her, and she's going down today to have this discussion with the commission and explain what the situation was. At that point, they will go, what do you think? Yeah? Aye? Okay. Or they're going to go, no, and not give her her license. Even after she's jumped through the hoops of school, test, passing, all of that, they could still not give her a license. There was a young lady that had been arrested for breaking and entering. Put it on the application, went in front of the commission. The commission said, we are not giving you a license because that deals with the trust of the public. Those are the ones they don't like. Theft, forgery, embezzlement, breaking and entering. Don't break and enter. Here's a key. Okay, that was a joke, see, because realtors get the keys to houses. I do know a guy that did 5 years sentence for possession of cocaine, and they gave him his license. So it's on a case-by-case basis. If you have got a moving violation, they don't really care about those, all right? Because the question asks something like, have you ever been arrested other than a minor moving violation in the last 5 years or something like that? And if you write yes, then you have to submit the paperwork, what the outcome of that court case was, and things like that. And then they call you down and say, hey, let's talk. All right? If you put no because you haven't been, then it's on your way. All right? So they can have those permissions. So Deanna Alexander may send an email out early and go, hey, we got 10 people that have applied today. What do you guys think? Are they all okay? Yes, they all might vote by email and go, hey, we'll pass them. Okay, well, then I'll go ahead and tell the people that they got their license even before the meeting so you guys can start. Pretty much as a managing broker, when you come to me and we fill out your application, if I see it's a clean application, we'll pretty much allow you to start being an agent when you mail it, even though technically they've got to give you your license. But it's a rubber stamp kind of thing. All right? Each member of the commission, letter E here, each member is entitled to a per diem. You guys know what per diem is? Daily pay. They get paid to be there. And I think it's like 50 bucks or 75. It's not enough to make someone want to do it for the money. They're doing it for the power, for the love of the business. All right? They are also entitled to reimbursement of travel. So, like the young lady who is a very smart young lady that comes from Fort Wayne, gets paid to drive down. She gets mileage. They get paid from the state's general fund. There's one word I would highlight, state's general fund. It is run by the state of Indiana's treasurer. They are our bank. We hold the purse strings, the commission holds the purse strings, but the treasurer is our bank, and it's called the State General Fund. There are two bank accounts that we have. One is called the State's General Fund. The second one is called the Real Estate Recovery Fund. Real Estate Recovery Fund. We will go in depth what the recovery fund is, maybe today, maybe tomorrow. But the easiest way to think about this is the state's general fund is money for us. This is where our fees go into, this is where the fines go into, this is where the pay for the commissioners come from, all of that. The Real Estate Recovery Fund goes to clients that have been harmed by us. All right? So the recovery fund doesn't come to us. It would go to a client. So if you don't know which bank account to choose, kind of keep that as a guideline. If it's dealing with us and pay or where our money goes, things like that, that's the general fund. If it's dealing with your client gets money back because an agent stole their earnest money, that's a recovery fund issue. So one is for clients, one is for us. The State General Fund is the one for us. Number two, the powers. The powers of the commission that have been granted to them are as follows. They adopt, administer, and enforce license law. Notice the word police is not in there. Adopt, administer, and enforce license law. These are the ones that created the laws that you are going to be working by. They are the only ones that can issue, deny, suspend, censure, or revoke a license. You guys have all heard us talk about the Board of Realtors of Indianapolis. It's called MIBOR. Think of them as a union. That's not a licensing. MIBOR has nothing to do with your license. Only the commission can deal with your license. They are the licensing entity. MIBOR deals with money issues. Hey, the other agent didn't pay what they were supposed to pay. I'll take you to MIBOR. Conversely, it's the opposite is also true. The commission doesn't deal with money issues. All right? If I think you guys didn't cheat me or you cheated me, I can't take your company to the real estate commission. No, that's a MIBOR issue. That's money. Now, if they're violating license law, then bring them to the commission. They are the only ones that deal with license. They adopt the standards of competent practice. Well, we know that's not true. I'm looking through here for a second because I've got something I wanted to do. Okay. They adopt the standards of competent practice. Give me just a second. I want to look at something. Normally I skip. Okay. What I want you to do is, if you can find letter C, enforcement of license law. It's on number 4C. Pages aren't numbered, I apologize. Number 4, letter C. Number 2, it says violations of license law are a Class A infraction. It's about halfway through. Guess I should, somebody tell me the page number when you find, oh no, don't count the pages. It's on page 12 if you count them. It's on page 12. Everybody find what I'm talking about? It's called violations of license law. The reason I want to skip here is because here is a list of incompetent practices. Everybody look at me if you found them. Have you got it? Who's not there yet? Page 12. Yes. 4C, number 2. Violations. Everybody's got the same handout. I'm sorry, this was my fault to create this cluster. Number 1 says enforcement, number 2 says violations. Next page. Joe, flip. Doesn't it say violations of license law? All right. The reason I want to show you this is because what I just read to you that said the standards, they adopted the standards of competent practice. And I said, we know that's not true. And you guys laughed. It's not true. Because what they did was tell you what incompetent practice was. And we're going to go through them right here. And their assumption is if you're not violating any of these incompetent rules law, you are in fact practicing competently. So instead of telling you what you can do, they told us what we can't do, and as long as you're not doing these, then you must be doing it right. So they really didn't adopt the rules of competent practice. They adopted the rules of incompetent practice, and the assumption is if you're not doing them, then you're fine. So there on 4 number 2, violations of license law are a Class A infraction on page 12. Incompetent practices. Acting as a broker without a license. That's their big deal. You can't buy, sell, trade, exchange, manage, list, rent, manage property without a license. That's where I go after people. To manage property in Indiana, you need a real estate license. If you are managing property without a license, you are in fact acting as a broker without a license. That's a violation of Indiana license law.
Is that why it's first?
Yes, that's exactly why it's first. That's their big one. Not that the rest of these in any kind of order, but that's their big one they really go after. Now, some of you are probably going to think, well, if I'm not licensed, how is the commission going to come after me because they deal with licensed people? There's always going to be one of you people in the crowd that think that. Here's how it works. They call the attorney general, who will come after you. Most of these lawsuits about acting without a license are the state versus so-and-so, filed by the real estate commission.
But wouldn't, if you're in the process of handling a deal, wouldn't sitting at the table, if I was dealing with you and you were like, wait, you don't have a license, wouldn't you automatically file a complaint?
Yeah, you should. If you call me and say I've got a property, I'm going to show a buyer your house, and I find out you're not licensed, and there are ways to do that, I would then file a complaint against you. The commission would say they're not licensed, so we can't really haul them in. But what we'll do is we'll file a case with the attorney general to come after you, and it will be the state versus Dusty. And the commission will be the one that is the aggrieved party. All right?
This is not a for sale by owner type situation.
No, that's not.
So if I own 2 rental properties and I manage it myself, I'm in violation?
No, you are not. Chavez is really good about working 2 pages ahead of me.
No, I only say that because I used to own several.
If you own your property, we're going to get to exemptions here in a minute. Number one exemption is if you own it, you are allowed to do all of that to your own. For sale by owners.
When I did, I didn't know it. It was just somebody like telling me what to do, but I didn't really know anything. So
Yeah.
I asked these questions because like, back then I was lost.
And now you're found. I once was lost, and now I'm found. We'll get to the violation, or there are exceptions, and the number one exception is if I own the property, I don't need a license for my property. So I can manage my property, I can buy and sell my property, I can for sale by owner my property. It's to do other people. If you manage for other people, that's a violation.